Hey everybody, and welcome back to LRN, the home of F1 news and fan opinion. If you are new around here, please make sure to hit a like on the video if you do enjoy it and subscribe to the channel to be notified of all future uploads. Today then, we're going to be looking at 6 of my biggest, boldest and probably divisive opinions on the F1 2023 season ahead. My ask of you though, the F1 fans, let me know in the comments below, what is your big prediction for the 2023 season? Not what you want to happen, what do you believe is going to happen, what do you think? It might be divisive, it might be out there, it might be something that most people probably don't agree with. I want to know what your big prediction for the 2023 season ahead is, but we're going to go through 6 of mine, and we'll kick off with, of course, what's on the thumbnail: double champions. So for the 2023 season, I'm going for Mercedes to win back their Constructors' Championship and for Lewis Hamilton to go ahead and win his 8th World Drivers' Championship. I think there's a couple of reasons for this. One, of course, we know how just relentless Mercedes are. We know that they're going to be pushing constantly. At the end of the 22 season, we saw how far they'd come. I think that Red Bull are potentially slightly rattled from the issues around the cost cap and playing a bit of a blame game. And of course, they had a massively positive season, but they still didn't see out the 1-2 in the Drivers' Championship. I think we'll get into this in predictions later, but I think in terms of the drivers for Red Bull, I don't think they're as strong as Mercedes. Let's just assume that the Red Bull and the Mercedes car end up being equal for this year over the course of the season, I think that the drivers will get it done for Mercedes. You could argue then that in the case that they were equal, that Verstappen maybe at the moment has the edge on Hamilton, and therefore he could go and win the Drivers' Championship. And of course, he's already proven that he can do that, and that may happen again. But for me, I think Mercedes are going to come back. I think Hamilton's going to come back with a vengeance. And I think he's going to come back and win his 8th World Drivers' Championship. Let me know if you agree below. Do you think Mercedes are going to go ahead and win another Constructors' title, and Hamilton going to go and win? Maybe you think Russell might go and win the Drivers' Championship. Let me know in the comments below. But for me, it's going to be Hamilton winning the title, the Drivers' Championship, and Mercedes winning back the Constructors' title from Red Bull Racing. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on that. Following on that then, another prediction from me is that we're going to see more politicking, more accusations, more finger pointing from Christian Horner and others. I think Toto Wolff will be included as well, but I think a lot of it's going to come from Christian Horner. We've already seen some of it coming on the back of, again, the cost cap saga. We've seen him sort of moaning about the archaic punishments being handed out. I think if Red Bull do struggle this season, what we're going to see is we're going to see them talking about the fact that they've, of course, been restricted by a punishment they don't think was just from the cost cap saga last year. And then on the back of that, I think we're going to see a lot of comments coming out from Christian Horner, essentially suggesting that looking ahead to 2023's cost cap investigation, essentially that he thinks other teams have already been breaking the cost cap, spending too much money. He's already alluded to it with Toto Wolff and Mercedes, basically saying that it's amazing how they've managed to upgrade their cars so much in the second half of the 22 season, given the cost cap regulations. So I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see a lot more, especially if Red Bull struggle. We're going to see a lot more finger pointing from Christian Horner across the garage to any team that seems to be performing well, any team that's bringing upgrades. They're going to want blood for what happened to them during the cost cap last year. And if there's been any sense that any team has gone over the cost cap into the 23 investigation, which we should be getting earlier in the season, Christian Horner will be there, I have no doubt about it, making sure that the maximum punishments are handed out, because he will want revenge for the year before. That's the way I see it. So I'm expecting lots and lots of noise, rumors, and just passive-aggressive comments coming from Christian Horner, and that to get worse should anything come to light, should we find out that any teams have been breaking the cap. Like Christian Horner's already suggested, he thinks that pretty much every team's going to break the cap this year. So it'll be interesting to see if his predictions come true. But regardless of whether there is any truth to it or not, expect him to be talking about it like there is and building up this narrative that teams are probably breaking it, so that basically he sets that view into the FIA's thinking that if early on, that if they are breaking it, the right punishments need to be handed out. That's my prediction. I think he's going to be talking about it a lot from probably quite early on in the season. So keep an eye out for that one. We'll see again if these predictions come true as we get through the 23 season and towards the end. But for me, that's definitely something to look out for. Third thing then to look out for this season is between Perez and Verstappen, and essentially the blowing up of their relationship. We've seen Perez come out over the off-season and talk about the fact that he's not there just to be Verstappen's teammate. He believes that he's the best he's ever been, and he's coming into the 2023 season ready to compete with Verstappen for the Drivers' Championship, or at least the number one driver at Red Bull. And I think that can only lead to a worsening of the relationship between Verstappen and Perez. We had a bit of, I think, pretend mending of that relationship at the end of last season following the issues that they had in Brazil, and a lot of stuff coming to light from feelings of anger from Verstappen's side and, of course, Perez's side that had clearly been going on through the season, with Monaco mentioned a lot. And I think this is only going to get worse through 2023. There's already been murmurs and rumours that Daniel Ricciardo is going to be brought in as a replacement for Perez. I don't think that's going to happen this season, during the season, unless Perez completely implodes. I'm not predicting him to do that. I do think he's going to have an okay season. I don't think he's going to challenge Verstappen, don't get me wrong, but I think some things are going to happen that's going to cause that relationship to get even worse, and I think we're going to see the beginning of the end of Perez's time at Red Bull as Verstappen starts to angle for Perez to end up basically being pushed out of the team, because Verstappen, being the driver that he is, having the weight and the power that he does at Red Bull, I think if he falls out with Perez, Perez is of course going to be the one to end up losing his position in the team. And then of course it comes about who's going to replace Perez in the team. Would it be Daniel Ricciardo, who they've obviously just brought in as a reserve driver, or my bet for it, because I don't think Ricciardo's got it anymore to go into Red Bull. I don't think he's going to want to go in and be second fiddle. It's a really interesting dynamic with Ricciardo. But we go in to my next prediction, and this is all about the youngsters. So it's kind of 3 for 1 here. My next prediction is around how the debutantes in their first full season in F1 are going to get on. And we'll kick off with Nyck de Vries, because of course Nyck de Vries is going to AlphaTauri, replacing Pierre Gasly. And I think we of course saw him perform in the Williams at Monza, but that was his first race weekend in F1. But this is his first full season. And I think he's going to do a really good job. My prediction for this season for Nyck de Vries is that he's going to have a fantastic season and really put pressure on Red Bull to put him in that car next to Verstappen when what I think will be a bit of an explosion of the relationship between Perez and Verstappen. I think de Vries is going to be there waiting for that position. And he's going to be giving them a choice, essentially, to go with the known hand of Ricciardo, to bring him in, someone who's driven for them before, that they trust, that Horner, of course, loves. Or are they going to go with de Vries, someone who's going to be in the AlphaTauri, and I'm predicting going to drive really, really well, pick up where Gasly left off a couple of seasons ago, and start to put in some big performances for the AlphaTauri team, and giving them not much choice but to go ahead and put de Vries in with Verstappen should what I predict come true around Perez being pushed out, I think, after the 23 season. So we'll see how it plays out, but I'm looking out for de Vries to have a really, really strong season, and I say put pressure on Perez for that number 2 spot in the Red Bull garage. We move on to another debutant then in Logan Sergeant. Now, very different prediction here. I think Logan Sergeant has been maybe put into F1 too soon, and I'm going to predict he's going to have a really tough season at Williams. I think he's been brought in with what seems to be the general consensus in Formula One at the moment, which is just this desperate attempt to get American drivers into the sport. I don't think that necessarily Sargeant was maybe the right person to come in. He's not been the most successful driver in Formula 2 and earned his way in that way. He has been relatively successful in Formula 2, but for me, probably wasn't quite ready to come in for a full-time drive in Formula 1. Now, he can, of course, prove me wrong, but I think we're going to see more of a Latifi, and I'm predicting him to have a Latifi-esque season, probably not troubling his teammate Albon in the Williams, probably playing a clear second fiddle, and maybe finding his position under threat come the end of the season in 2023. That's my prediction for Logan Sergeant. We will again, of course, see if that comes true. Let me know again your thoughts on my predictions in the comments, and let me know, of course, your big prediction for the 23 season in the comments below. But finally, the final debutant, of course, Oscar Piastri. Now, my prediction with Piastri is kind of between the two we've just gone through. I don't think he's going to have an absolutely blinding season where he goes in and he challenges Lando Norris for, you know, the number one driver at McLaren, and I don't think he's going to be awful either. I think he's going to have an improvement on what Ricciardo was getting out of the car. I do think he's going to be better in terms of pure pace and points gained over what Ricciardo was doing in the McLaren last season. So that for me is actually going to be enough to take McLaren back to P4 in the Constructors' Championship at the end of the 23 season. We saw the massive gap between Norris and Ricciardo in terms of their total points haul in the 22 season. So my prediction is that Piastri is going to be a good enough improvement on Ricciardo that they're going to get McLaren back ahead of Alpine, but I do not think that he's going to be able to challenge Norris in terms of overall points output. I'd be more looking at Norris as potentially, again, going in and getting a race win, challenging for podiums, and outperforming the McLaren like he's done for a few years now. But I think Piastri can come in and be a really good, decent second driver, and as I say, help McLaren just close that gap between their two drivers, have a more even points distribution than we saw between Norris and Ricciardo, and do enough to bring them fourth place in the Constructors' Championship. So that's my prediction for Piastri and my prediction for the three debutantes this season. My fifth prediction for the 23 season is around the midfield battle. So I've already said that I think McLaren are going to go ahead and get fourth, but in a more general sense, I think we're going to see a really strong midfield battle. Multiple teams involved again. I don't think we're going to have one team at the back cut astray. I think pretty much everyone, you know, Williams, Haas, Alpine, McLaren, Aston Martin, they're all going to be challenging each other. AlphaTauri as well, all challenging for those midfield positions. It's all going to be race dependent, track dependent, in terms of how they get on and what suits their cars. I think that McLaren are going to be the ones to win out overall over the course of the season across every single track. But I think each race that we go to, we're going to see different cars challenging for the top positions in midfield and the bottom, and I think they're all going to be really tight. So how that plays out over the season, going to be really interesting. But look out for some midfield madness. Look out for the best racing, I think, of the season is going to happen in that midfield. I don't think it's going to necessarily happen at the front. I think the midfield, once again, could be where the bulk of the action, the bulk of the overtakes, and the bulk of the excitement is for the 2023 season ahead. So look out for that in the season. And again, let me know if you think that's right in the comments. My next prediction, my final prediction for the season ahead, is that Ferrari will improve. I mean, we know all of the issues that they've had under Binotto's stewardship in terms of their inability to, basically, they just had too many strategic options through each race, and everything was overly complicated, and there was no accountability, and too many issues under the Binotto stewardship, to the point, of course, Binotto has been put on gardening leave, lost his position, and Frederic Vasseur has been brought in from Alfa Romeo to take that position. And my prediction is simply that Ferrari will improve as an outfit, be more consistent. I think the experience of Vasseur as a pure racer is going to come in and really do wonders for Ferrari. Now, I don't mean that in the sense that they're going to come in and start winning races every single week, But I do think that we're going to hear less in the background noise, less of the issues, less of basically the complaints that we all had as F1 fans about Ferrari throwing results away because of their own poor decision making on a weekly basis. I think a lot of that's going to go. The noise will quieten down, and we'll end up with a more consistent Ferrari team that I think is going to add massively to the championship picture. I've already said I think Mercedes are going to go ahead and win it, but I think Ferrari are going to have a big part to play. It's going to be those three teams at the front. I do still think they're going to be third of the three. I think it will be Mercedes at the front, Red Bull, and then Ferrari. I think there's going to be the challenge between probably Verstappen, Russell, and Hamilton in terms of the drivers. Leclerc could get himself in there, but I think overall points haul, Ferrari are going to finish third. Verstappen and Red Bull going to be in second in the constructors, and Mercedes, Hamilton at the front. But it's still positive for Ferrari. I think overall they're going to have a better year. They're going to be closer. They're going to be more consistent. And if they can get the car right, if they do produce something magic in terms of the car design, then I think actually Ferrari could go and push on with Vasseur at the head, at the helm of Ferrari. They're going to have a better chance than they did under Binotto of maximising those results and putting themselves in contention for that Constructors' Championship. As I say, we haven't seen the cars yet. We haven't been through testing, so these are really early predictions from me. But really early on, looking at the season ahead, I'm going to predict that Ferrari are going to be a lot more consistent and dependent on what they can produce in the car. It's not going to be their strategy calls that are messing them up. It's not going to be all the crap that they really shouldn't have been doing. Individual errors, whether it be the drivers or the teams or the engineers, whatever it might be. I think a lot of that stuff's going to go. Of course, there's still going to be the odd one, but overall under Vasseur is going to improve, it's going to quieten down, and we're going to see a more efficient Ferrari unit, which of course, hopefully they can produce the car and we can have a really monstrous, titanic struggle for the Constructors' Championship and the Drivers' Championships as well in the 23 season. Hopefully we'll see all 6 drivers competing. But for me, I think the most likely scenario, if all cars are very close, you know, Hamilton, Verstappen, Leclerc, maybe Russell getting in there. I think Sainz needs to show improvement. And I think Perez is nowhere near being able to compete with Verstappen over the course of a season. So that rules him out unless something mad happens. I think Sainz has it in him. He just needs to find that next gear. And if he does find it in the first maybe 6 races of the season and he's showing that he can compete with Leclerc, then absolutely, why not? Why can't Sainz then get involved in the Drivers' Championship? But again, my early prediction is that Leclerc could potentially get involved in that Drivers' Championship discussion. I think it's too soon for Ferrari. I think it's going to take a couple of years for Vasseur to actually get the team working efficiently enough to truly challenge, depending on the car that they produce. I think at the moment, the Ferrari car would need to be significantly quicker than the Mercedes and the Red Bull to get enough points to beat them. But overall, they will massively improve with him at the helm. But they are my predictions for the season ahead. I'm desperate to know what yours are, so please let me know in the comments below. If you are new around here, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, and make sure that to be notified of all future uploads. Subscribe on the bottom right hand side. And again, let me know in the comments your big prediction for the 2023 season. I can't wait for it to get started. Really looking forward to how this all plays out. I'm really looking forward to doing a bit of a reaction at the end of the season, looking at some of these predictions and whether or not I've got any of them right or even close. Because it could be completely wrong, but at this stage, this early stage, they are my predictions. So let me know your thoughts on my predictions in the comments below and your big, bold prediction. Otherwise, just thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.